Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And for today, we're going to do our interview sessions with the Sudanese persons. So first of all, we'd like to introduce ourselves. We are from the College Professional Mara Indah Mahkota from Diploma in English Communications. My name is Muhammad Syafiq.
And my name is Syahmi Wazien.
And the purpose for this interview is to research more regarding the intercultural communications that you have experienced during your time in Malaysia. So, without further ado, may we start with your introduction first?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ala Nasruddin Ahmed Kabashi, but you can just refer to me as Ala, and I'm a student from IIUM. I'm a final year, 5th year medical student studying here, and my parents are both Sudanese nationals, and I'm also Sudanese by race, but I'm born and raised in Malaysia, so I believe we'll have a very fruitful discussion on the intercultural aspects.
Thank you very much, Ala. So, without further ado, we will start with our very first question. So for our first questions, it will be, after living here, how do you adapt with your new lifestyle?
So, since, as I've mentioned earlier, I've been in Malaysia for quite a long time since I'm born and raised here. So, because my parents are both Sudanese, they're from Sudan. So, how I live at home compared to when I come to university, which is I think a good experience of Malaysian culture. It's quite because I feel like it's different but same at the same time. The adapting part was a bit hard in the beginning, given the fact that I've always been eating my parents' food, which is Sudanese food, and then compared to Malaysian food, which is very much a lot of spices, and it's not really good for my gastrointestinal tract. So it took me a while to actually get used to the spiciness of the food. But besides that, I've had a wonderful time. It wasn't that hard to adapt, definitely, because of the people. I think the Malaysian people are very nice. My roommates also, and all the people in my batch mates, my juniors, my seniors, all of them have been very welcoming and wonderful. And I believe the Malaysian race have that to offer. They're very nice people, so it wasn't that hard for me.
Okay, thank you, Ala. So we move on into the next question.
Okay, my question is for you. How important is to you to show respect when talking to elders or people in authority? Do you notice any big difference on how people talk depending on age and status?
So the question was how, regarding older people and people of higher status, when talked about in Sudan or here in Malaysia?
In Sudan.
In both, okay. Or yeah, in Sudan, okay. Basically, in Sudan, how it is you treat your elders as all elders are treated as older family members. So the respect we have for our elders in Sudan is very, very a very important thing. We never call our elders by their names. You always have to refer to them as the status that they are, whether they are we have distinguished maybe Hajj or maybe Aboba or Ummi or something like that. So it's for male or female, it's depending on that. And definitely it's a lot of the respect is very important. I think Malaysia is quite the same also. I've noticed, you don't talk to your lecturers the same way you talk to your member. Yeah. So you have to always treat them with respect, so it's the same.
So we go into more specific question. Is it true that people in Sudan often use phrases like inshallah to politely avoid saying no? How do you usually respond to requests like this?
Okay, so definitely it's true. I think inshallah, you can assume it can mean no. We always say inshallah to be a nicer way to let someone down. So you don't say no immediately. You say inshallah, which everyone knows, which is inshallah, if God wills. I will try my best, but inshallah. So when people ask me, for example, if I can make it to, for example, different things, I wouldn't know. So inshallah. Maybe I want to go, maybe I don't. Maybe the weather won't turn out to be so well, but inshallah.
So do Malaysian understand phrases like inshallah the same way Sudanese people do? How does this affect your interaction here?
I think yes, definitely. I think Malaysians are very well aware of inshallah means maybe not 100%. So people are also aware with me when it comes to like asking me for requests, like whether I can make it or not. If I'm very sure, I'll be yes with inshallah. If I only say inshallah, maybe it's no.
Alright, for next question. Do people in Sudan usually stick to the formal language in public? Or, what happens if someone use slang or casual words instead, like market language?
So that's really interesting because Sudanese, so Arabic, so in Sudan, to explain how Sudan works, it's a country in Africa, as you know, it's Afro-Arab. So we speak Arabic as our like main language over there, but then our Arabic is slang Arabic. So if you know the Arabic that you learn in school, like we learn in school, in like school in Malaysia, very different from what is Sudan, how we speak in Sudan. So generally, Sudanese language is informal as a whole. So we are a very informal race, so we actually talk informally most of the time. Even when you're talking to someone of higher status, you still talk to them informally. If you start speaking like formal Arabic, everyone will look at you really like weird, like why is this person talking like he's in a book or something. Even actually I realized the same with like because my grandparents are from Egypt, so I've noticed it's the same thing also in Egypt. We speak the Amiya, we call, so it's like we speak the language of the market, the language of the people. So that's how it is.
So, after studying in Malaysia, did you pick up some of the Malaysian way of speaking? And how does it affect your life here?
So born and raised Malaysia, definitely have Malaysian slang in me. I think like I also, when I came to Kuantan, since I've like started my degree in Kuantan, it's become a lot more like heavier, where it's gone to the point where my accent has also changed. A lot of people have said that. My cousins back home, they're like, you sound different now. Even my English sounds like different. Like I can speak in slang. And my Malay, like my Malay now, my roommates at one, they like completely made sure that I am able to pick up the language also, because as a medical student, I interact a lot with patients. So slang I now use a lot. And even when I text, like before this, I memang tak faham this, the text kind of Malay, there's like short form. I didn't get it. But now I'm like, okay, I have now adapted to that and I'm able to text that way. But I make sure not to text like that to lecturers. Definitely I'll speak formally lah. But I'm able, you see la, it comes out. I can speak with my slang, Malaysian slang. It's shaped how I speak now.
Alright. After this, are blessing or phrases like "Oh my God, give your health" or "Yatik al afia" used a lot in daily conversation? How do they replace as simple as "thank you"?
So Arab, like Sudanese Arabs, when they speak, when you first meet some friend that you haven't met in a long time, we use a lot of these like big phrases like "Ya'tik al-afia," like, you know, even when you start introducing like a friend you haven't seen in so long, it's like Allah khalik, Allah barik fik, which means like Allah khalik means may God leave you for us, like may you still be healthy. Allah barik fik means may God bless you, and it's just a simple hello, you know. But we will go on for so long, the introduction will be like, if you ever see like any two aunties, like Sudanese aunties talking to each other, will be so long, and that's just the introduction. They haven't even talked about the main topic yet. It's like Allah barik fik, Allah khalik, Allah barik fik. So those are like used really big like Islamic like phrases, like Ya'tik al-afia, may God give you health. So it's a very, like, we do use that a lot in Arabic language.
So in Sudan, blessings are often used instead of direct thank you. Have you noticed if Malaysia are familiar with this? How do they usually react?
Yeah, in Malaysia, it's like quite direct. I feel like the language in that sense is very direct. So sometimes I want to say words like the same way in Arabic, but I realize like after a while that's just not the cultural thing to do. But then sometimes when I tell like the people I'm close to, I'm like, when I say this, it's just that's how we say it back home in Sudan. So some of my friends have also picked up on that. So they'll say these. They'll have also now become a bit more Sudanese because of me. Yeah.
Your friends quite lucky to have you, you know.
Alright. So, when men and women greet, is it common for them to avoid physical contact? What's a typical greeting between the two?
So in like Sudan, men and women like don't really like physical contact is not very common, but then it is there if it's like relative, even if it is a distant relative. Like for example, cousins, we actually do like shake your cousin's hand. I think it's something that Malaysia doesn't have. So it's like the difference between Malaysia and in Sudan is that Sudan is a bit more physical when it comes to that. But yeah, that's how it is over there.
So in Malaysia, the physical contact, even between men and women, is somehow uncommon in certain contexts, like handshake and greetings. Has this ever made you uncomfortable or lead to misunderstanding?
So because of like being raised in Malaysia, I'm like aware already like from a young age what like the yes and no's. Like when I'm in Malaysia, I don't, of course you don't shake a guy's hand or something like that. And in Sudan, it's like if it's your cousin or relative, even if it's a distant relative, you do shake the a male's like hand. So I haven't really had any kind of like issue with that, but I have seen issues which is like, this is like a bit random to insert, but like when I was in like when like I've met this one British guy. He came to Malaysia and he just shook my hand immediately, and I was like, oh, you have a lot to learn about Malaysia. Yeah, and I was like, this is awkward, but I'm like, it's okay. I think because he doesn't understand the culture, so it's just something that's very, they don't like, British people don't do it. They're okay with shaking hands, but Sudan is like also not allowed, especially if you like, if not your blood relative. And Malaysia also same thing. But the UK, the West, they have it common, like shake hands. I had a very hard time when I was in the UK for my clinical program. It was like a really hard time. I'm like trying to avoid everyone's hands. I'm like, yeah, we don't do that here.
All right. Malaysia might have a different sense of personal space compared to Sudanese people. Have you found it difficult to adjust to this, especially in crowded areas, like Pasar Malam, for example?
Okay, so that's like a good question. So with the example of Pasar Malam, the thing is also geographically, Sudan is like a lot bigger than Malaysia. So Sudan used to be the biggest country in Africa. So that's, if you can imagine how big it is, it's a lot bigger than Malaysia. So like actually the personal space thing, it's not really been an issue. Like it's not something in Sudan, it's not very close, it's not crowded. Like Pasar Malam in Malaysia, it's like, realize the space that we use for Pasar Malam is not that big. So everyone at the end will all be in this one area, one lorong, all trying to buy the same thing. It's really packed lah. But in Sudan, you don't actually see packed as much because it's like, we don't have a big density population. So it's not that much people, but it's a very big country. So we can have like our Pasar Malam in a very big space and it's not a really big issue. In Malaysia, it's like constricted a bit. So yeah, we do have over here in Malaysia, it's like, oh, this is so crowded. Tapi dah biasa dah. Especially during Ramadan, it's going to be extra crowded.
So basically, you just try to adapt with the situation here. I see. So we move on into the next question. So eye contact expectation might differ between Sudan and Malaysia. Have you ever been in a situation where your use of eye contact have misinterpreted by the Malaysians?
Okay, so eye contact, from my experience, it's like, I think Asians in general, the eye contact is not something people do much here in Asia. Like Malaysians, like especially kalau you're like in the LRT or anything like that, no one's really gonna stare at you, unless. Actually, I've felt this a bit, which is like if I look differently than others, then people will look at me like a bit longer. But then it's not as bad as in Sudan. Sudan is like they'll straight up stare at you. Like, do you have an issue right now? Like they're all looking at you and you look at them, and if it's just. I think I've become very used to the Asian way of doing things. I'm like, I don't make eye contact, like, I just look down, do my own work, in the LRT or anything. But Sudan is like, yeah, they're staring. They don't really have that sense of like, that cultural sense that is in Malaysia to not stare.
I don't think I can handle that much there. All right, for the last question for today. In Sudan, it's not common to smile at strangers, right? In Malaysia, people often smile as signs of friendliness. Has this difference in facial expression caused any awkward moments for you?
Okay, so when you talk about smiling in Sudan, I think actually it's a misconception. I think in Sudan, people do smile a lot. But in Sudan, it's like when they smile at you, usually it's like, relatives kind of thing. It's like someone you know, even though like me personally, because I don't go to Sudan very often. I only go there, like I used to go there once a year, and when I was younger I used to go more than when I became older. So when people smile at me, I'm like, do I know this person? And then they know me, so they smile at me and I'm like, I don't know who that is. So I'm like, do I smile back? What do I do? But Malaysia has taught me to smile a lot. So I think with the whole multicultural thing we have in Malaysia, people are very friendly around here, like between races and stuff like that. It's like not uncommon to have like smiles, eye contact, gestures like that. But Sudan, it's actually they do smile in Sudan. But yeah, I'm trying to remember if there's any maladaptation or any issues. But I don't think I've ever had an issue with the whole smiling thing. It's like also smiling is sunnah, so we should smile more. Yeah. So that's.
So with that, we already come to the last of our question, and I'd like to thank you for your time for this interview, even though it might be quite sudden for us to make this kind of interview, but thank you very much for your time, Allah. And of course, for the intercultural things, I very much impressed by how you explain yourself, how you somehow adapt in the new cultural background, despite knowing that you are from Sudan, which is quite far from Malaysia, and learning in Malaysia, which are very much kind of difference from Sudan itself. So with that, we like to end this conversation with Tasbih Kisfaro and Suratul As. No. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you for having me and thank you for this session. It's also nice to remember every once in a while the similarities and differences we have between our different races and the cultural mix of like what I have experienced in life. So thank you for this interview. Okay.